Hello everyone and welcome to Avantika Designeering series or ADS as we like to call it. Every week on Wednesday we feature design and technology leaders who share their professional journey, their thoughts on their domain of work and designeering where the world of design and engineering meet. Make sure you follow us on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter. And with that, let's continue with your show.
Creating personas based on extensive research is a great tool to understand the needs, desires, and the pain points of the users and create empathy within the team. But crafting consistent and emotionally positive experiences also requires a service design approach with a deep understanding of the system and all its stakeholders. It can help designers understand the different levels and how they're interconnected to create a seamless and enjoyable experience for the end user. So, how can designers create a seamless and emotionally positive experience to gain trust of the users? To know more about this theme, in this episode, we interact with Kadambari Sahu, Senior Vice President Design at ValueLabs. With over a decade's experience in the design industry, she is an international award winning designer and leader with expertise in interaction design, design thinking, user interface design, team building, and much more. And that's why, on our journey of discovering designeering, we talk to her about striving towards perfection by design. Hello, Kadambari. Welcome to Avantika Designeering podcast series. It's a pleasure to host you on our show today.
Thank you, Rohit, for having me here. I'm equally excited to share my experiences with you.
Super. So, Kadambari, before we get into the world of design and things that you've been doing, let's start with an interesting icebreaker. We have heard philosophers and design thinkers saying that to solve impossible problems, improve the quality of your thinking. Now, better thinking, problem solving, and reasoning are skills that can be developed through learning new frameworks and expanding our mental models. However, the question that I have for you there is how can designers open their minds, improve their quality of mindset to harvest the best ideas and refine them to fit in, say, the real world constraints?
So that's a very interesting question, Rohit. For me, I think how do I expand or how do I go about this is by opening myself to newer experiences and perspective. I think as a designer, it is extremely important to be broad thinkers and to identify things that can be challenging in terms of, uh, understanding other people and their belief. And that's why I believe that it is important for us as designers to challenge our belief system through observation, through heated discussion, through arguments, because these are the things which makes us expand our thought processes, bring about new frameworks of thinking. Questioning everything critically has also been one of the way. I think it's very important for designers to look at any given problem and think about it. That expands, in terms of how we can do problem solving or how can we go about looking at expanding mental models and understanding people. I think another way is to read, consume a lot of various medias, watch movies, travel, try to understand different cultures, and do this all by examining it critically and non-judgmentally. Because it's not just about consumption; it is also about thinking about it, reflecting, and understanding. So that's the way I think one can expand their thinking and be improve their reasoning and thinking abilities. So yeah, and I think the biggest thing is to stay curious and be learner for the life.
Well, that's quite some sound advice and very interesting to set the context of how this conversation is going to be. And while Kadambri, you shared with us in terms of how do you actually build an interesting mindset and ensure that you are able to tackle the real world constraints, let's deep dive into your experience. I mean, having an experience more than a decade, you founded the award winning design team user experience group at ValueLabs, and currently leading 50 plus designers to create world class and award winning products and services to impact business positively. From your D school education to being the senior vice president design at Value Labs, we're excited to hear about your professional journey. How has it all worked for you over the last couple of years?
Wow, this is a like a really like an answer which can actually go about like an hour or so. I'll try to keep it short though. My journey actually started before design school when I wanted to enroll into one. Because being an engineering graduate, I did not know that design even existed. It was a serendipitous encounter of a graffiti which said rooted in design, which actually got me thinking that what is design and how is circuit design, being an electronic engineer, getting into rooted in design. And then that question to a friend exposed me to the world of design. And that point of time, that another friend of mine was a mechanical engineer and they had design methodology, so he could tell me something about it. And that got me hooked. I was like, wow, this field is so interesting. And I also come from like a background where I'm extremely like my family comes from a very creative background. So this was something that I wanted to do. Like I was enchanted towards this field, but I did not know how to go there. And looking at the people who apply to design schools with amazing portfolio, great sketching skills, I always thought I was never good enough. So I just applied and I got through NID, which was like the biggest shocker of my life at that point of time. And when my mom said that you have got through NID, I said, please read. It might have been written not got through. My mom said, I know how to read English. Don't act smart. That was the first surprise that I had. And since then, I have had many surprises like this where I have literally achieved more than I thought I could. And it started with the first design journey step, which was getting into design, and then the phenomenal 2 years of amazingness of new media design, where I studied at NID. And this was one of the most influential times of my life in terms of a person that I was becoming. Um, it helped me change everything that I thought was sacred. The classes like media studies and the classes that we had in terms of ethnography changed my perspective towards everything in life. And our mentor, Dr. Jignesh Khakar, who made this as a habit where, everything that I thought I couldn't achieve, first he made that as a goal. And as soon as you achieve that, after crying and getting up and whatever, in between feeling insufficient, as soon as you reached that goal, he said that you're almost there and gave you another impossible, sort of brief to go after, which in a way made me cry a lot, made me feel that I was totally insufficient. I can never be good enough. But at the same point of time, with all the push, magically somehow, and, working hard towards it, I could achieve it. And then again, there was another goal, which also meant that there is no final destination. It's just, that you are going to get from one part to another. So apart from that, there were like immense learning at NID with students, fellow students who were very different from me and extremely talented, which made you question that are you even like would you be able to go ahead in life? But thankfully, I had like a lot of creative confidence in me, saying that okay, they are best in what they are doing, but as an individual, I have some of the best qualities. So I never let anything overwhelm me or decide that I won't be good enough. So I think that really helped me, because you'll find in life that there are many talented people, and you can't compete with everything, but staying true to what you are would eventually become a strength of yours. So from design school, and my internship again was very influential, which I did with Charvi Design Labs, where I was not treated like an intern at all. I was treated like a partner in the company, and as a core team member, which again gave me a lot of confidence. And the project itself, that we were trying to do at that point of time, it was way ahead of its time, when we were looking at Kinect, and we were creating these interactive installations, and the kind of creative high that I got from that and the confidence, I started my own studio with a fellow designer. I ran it successfully, and then I ventured into like a corporate life through TCS. Again, TCS was a very different experience from running your own company or your own practice. There also, I learned a lot, specifically, like, understanding that how such big organization where 3 lakh plus employees are, and how to create experiences for them. So that was an amazing experience that I had. And for the first time in my life, I also got through a fellowship and traveled outside India to San Francisco. So here, my life was changing in a way that just from coming from a middle class family from Mumbai, I was experiencing now something which is not really similar to my culture. Going abroad and looking at different sort of experiences there. So that was my first encounter with a very different culture and different geography, which positively impacted in my own life. From there, then I went to Pramati, which again gave me amazing experience in terms of leading a product. Um, Pramati was another amazing experience and one of the most influential again, because this was the first time that I was leading a product, like a software product. I had a team which was working along with me. I was working with an engineering department and passionate people all over. The kind of I still remember the kind of fights that we used to have with engineers at that point of time, and they were good friends, to be honest. And we all knew that you're fighting because we want the best, for the product. So it was amazing experience to work with passionate people out there, do a lot of experiments, and succeed. And we were very happy because one of the things that we did was a major UX overhaul for WaveMaker. At that point of time, it was called Clear Glass Release, which was predominantly a UX overhaul of the whole product. We did not look at the product from just the end user's perspective, but the whole system thinking was involved, service design was involved, and when even branding was there. So it was like a amazing piece of work that we could do. Still very proud of that work. And after that, when I was comfortably settled in Pramati in terms of loving the people that I work with, the product I work with, I got an opportunity from ValueLabs to establish my own design organization at ValueLabs. And that was the thing that got me very interested in changing the company, and I came to ValueLabs. And ever since then, I have grown this team here, which is called User Experience Group, and the whole design practice at Valley Labs defined everything from the roles to the processes as to how the kind of projects we will take, what we will do, and so it was extremely gratifying to start with from the scratch at Valley Labs to now lead a team of 66 plus actually designers here, and establish the whole practice. From a practice which was so new, in 3 years we have actually won 122 awards so far. So that's another amazing feat that we could do, making sure that, and most of these awards are international. So, getting this kind of validation from all over the world for the products that we are designing. And we're very proud that we are not just into one particular digital, but we create digital physical experiences, and which is holistic and service design led. So that's another thing that I'm extremely proud of in terms of Value Labs, that we are very free to do what we want to do. And people here again are so amazing and inspiring that you want to continue to do a lot of things. As design team also, we always think that what we can do more than what we are doing in business, and that's why as a team we came up with Design Inspire also, which is another journey where we're trying to look at how can we positively impact design community by giving back to society. So yeah, this has been my journey so far.
Wow, that is quite some incredible journey. In fact, so many interesting experiences that have actually, shaped you into the individual that you are, and that too at such a young age, and in such a limited time. In fact, in the year 2018, Kadambari, you founded Sniffing Out, the Differences Collective, which started with the grant received from Prince Claus Fund and British Council to explore storytelling through multi-sensory installation focusing on smell interactions. Can you tell us more about the kind of projects you do and what approach you follow to execute these creative ideas there?
So, sniffing out the differences started with a thought that smell is a cultural heritage. And that point of time, the open call that came out from Prince Claus Fund and British Council was that they wanted to explore stories or installation or arts which goes beyond just cultural heritage. So, we contemporary take beyond cultural heritage was their call, and they wanted to explore stories in that. And at that point of time I thought that wow, I'm a person who has a very sharp sense of smell. And I always knew that smells are not just perfumes, like and also they have a lot of cultural significance, and I wanted to explore this thing about smells. So another theme which I explored within this was, apart from smell being a cultural heritage, was identity and differences that often leads to xenophobia. And thus, sniffing out the differences explored these stories of identity and differences with this novel medium of smell. So we created 5 stories in that, starting with diversity in us. Then there was Jallianwala Bagh, identity stories, Mir Abdul Attarwala, and Xeno 500. These were part of the exhibitions that we did. We still continue to create a lot of different stories with social message, and each of these stories had a message, social message, which was explored through medium of smell. So it was a very innovative take on creating stories and narratives which talk about things that matter currently, in which diversity in us try to talk about my own experience and how our modern conception of identity is, where I always become perplexed when people ask me, where are you from? And I've lived in various cities, and I don't think that th- only one city can describe my cultural identity. So to sort of talk about this, that our modern cultural identity is amalgamation of all the places that we have lived so far. I created diversity in us, which talked about smell, a festival, and the cultural composition, which was explored through medium of smell. You could identify a certain city and festivals related to it. The second was Jallianwala Bagh, which was actually a remediation of the massacre into 7 jars, which had the episodes of Jallianwala Bagh, and the idea was to mirror the past with current, the present, where people are becoming polarized, and just to give them a warning that when you become extremely polarized, you start stripping others of the personhood, and then there can be a lot of crimes and massacre that can be committed. So Jallianwala Bagh was that take. Identity stories explored stories of 2 protagonists who lived in different regions widely, and it was a commentary on how these days, in some of the cities, when people from other city comes in or other places comes in, there are violences that they have seen. And this whole thing was talking about that if we've lived in so many cities and we call uh, that city our home, then who is the other, and who gives anybody the right to do such kind of violences? So it was that kind of take that we took in these stories. We also explored culture of all these cities where these 2 protagonists were. Mir Abdul Attarwala is based on the struggles of people in war-torn region um, in Kashmir, and it used poetry and perfume to talk about these struggles. That was another extremely good installation that was done as part of sniffing out the differences. And then the last one was Xeno 500, which was a speculative narrative which treats xenophobia as a disease and suggests remedy which will spark more questions than it actually answers. And this was not done alone. I started sniffing out the differences with the thought, but then along came my team. We had me, then Sandeep Mulgapati, Gaurav Patikar, Karan Dudeja, Devanshu Bhaumik, Anuja, Pranshu, and there were a lot of other, Archana. So all of these people contributed towards this particular collective. We still continue to brainstorm and bring about some more stories. Um, the best part about sniffing out the differences, because it was a lot of olfactory research. You're trying to understand smell, manufacturing some of them, and create narratives. It was extremely gratifying. It used a lot of different disciplines of design, starting with interaction design, research, then exhibition design, installation design, and all of these things. We were not the only one to think that this is multi and transdisciplinary project, but the projects, I mean, this project has won a lot of awards, including the Red Dot German Design Award, Communication Design Award, Communication Arts in Interactive Print Awards for Environment, and many, many others. So one of my favorite projects so far, um, which breaks the boundaries between different disciplines of design to create a holistic experience and narrative, which has a power to contribute towards society by questioning people. So this is what sniffing out the differences is.
Hey, did you know ValueLabs digital flywheel, driven by Imagine framework, aids organizations by integrating business strategy, user experience, analytics, automation, and product development to build sustainable commercial momentum, all by design. Wow, this is really incredibly very unique, something that we've not come across. In fact, while you were talking about it, and while you landed up talking about how you've lived in different places, different cultures out there, one of the keywords that I got hooked onto is that of research. The excitement of research is often wound up in the energy of seeing people's reaction in the wild.
Yeah.
And to solve their problems, designers have to immerse themselves by being there right where the action happens to uncover behaviors, frictions, or say even patterns.
Hmm.
And remote research feels like a poor substitute, a weak limitation of the real world. What I wish to know from you, Kadambari, next is, what are your views on this? How did you and your team bridge the gaps and friction in the remote research process?
So, like remote research has its own challenges, and because of the pandemic, it became the norm for this particular time to, go about having remote research. But I think in current times, the technology had really eased it a little, while it cannot totally substitute the real presence that you get, to actually interact with people, observe them, while they do their task. But during these challenging times, we were able to leverage, the digital tools and technologies to circumvent some of these issues. So in some cases, it actually helped because our presence was not felt, and users could still, be comfortable in their home, and then, go about, looking at the screens and go about, doing the sort of testing that we had asked them, like a task or things like that. They went about it, and we could interview them. So they were quite comfortable because they were in a familiar place, in a place where things were happening, and we could conduct those interviews and usability in the comfort of their home, while we were not directly visible. So that did give some of the things for us to take and work with. At the same point of time, because we are in the digital world, and most of our products are also digital. Now, thankfully, that did not have a lot of implications, but where it had implications, also there we had our workarounds. So, for example, in one of the products that we were making, it required to study like literally how technicians work. So at that point of time, we used a lot of different ways of sort of doing this. First, we watched their recordings. So we had taken the permission, installed cameras, and looked at how those people were literally going about doing those things. We did role playing to understand how nuances and scenarios could be. So these were some of the ways in which we could adapt to this whole thing of during the pandemic, the remote research.
Wow, interesting. And in fact, while you've been talking since quite some time about Value Labs,
Mm-hmm.
a global technology service and solutions company that provides end to end solutions in customer experience, data analytics, product development, and automation. Under your leadership, its project, Mitchell Intelligent Vision XR Solution, has won 4 awards in different categories at the Muse Creative Awards 2021. Can you share with us briefly the concept and the most challenging part of this project?
So this is one of my, another special project for us that we collaborated with Mitchell International, and now it has won 11 awards. So it's consistently won lot of awards for very different, um, very different aspects of design, from strategy to user experience to XR. So it has won various awards for its design. When this started, we were extremely excited because I come from a background of new media, and this was extended reality XR solution that we were looking at, and we were also looking at something which is industry's first. So it's industry's first XR solution applied to collision repair workflow. Now, what does that mean? This means that if anybody has like a vehicle accident, the procedure they go through from vehicle check-in to check-out in body shop for their insurance claims and then repair is something that this application manages. The promise of the hands-free headset itself gave us the opportunity to work towards creating a safe and proper repair for the technicians. So the opportunity to do something innovative was immense, and so that got us excited. The flip side was that documentation on this device and the the guidelines or the applications in the market for this particular product was really sparse. But that again, we took as an opportunity. This gave us the opportunity to start thinking from the ground up and from this scratch. So we conducted a lot of experiments. We played with the device. We collaborated with the experts. Actually, we had a um, session with the people who made the real wear glasses. So we actually had a session with them. We understood from even insurance and claims that how this process works. So whole of this whole sessions were really good for us to understand the flow and the scenario. And when we got all of these data points, we started first with solid design strategy and frameworks as to how we would go about solving a problem which is of this nature. So we understood nuances and scenarios in terms of how they are going to do it, and based on that we also brainstormed on modality, like what are we going to use, because the device had speech, it has camera, and when we did that we also tried to be inclusive and try to make sure that whoever is using this device is safe and is feeling good. There's no frustration, not just less, but no frustration in terms of and this essentially meant that we played out a lot of scenarios. Not only we observed, had all of these data, but we played out these scenarios. In these scenarios, we came to know about, let's say, privacy concerns when people are dictating. We came to know about a lot of frustrations when you're dictating a 10-digit number, and because this is hands-free device and you're not going to click onto it, and you went wrong on the sixth place, do you erase? How do you go about, going about creating experiences? So from macro to micro level, looking at the whole system of insurance and car repair, to UI, where we are talking about these kind of frustrations. We actually pinpoint each of these scenarios, iterated, prototype, tested it out with our stakeholders and users. So this was like highly collaborative with engineering team, and then design team sitting there in US, design team sitting here in India. We had like such an intellectual high, doing this project. We just had a great time working, iteratively creating the best possible outcomes. So yeah, we also adapted a Mitchell's magnetic design system for this particular device. So there was various different level of design disciplines, thought processes. We also had to see ergonomics. So all of these things came together to create the experience that we were looking for the technicians to do safe repair, and for people who are involved to do safe check-in, easy and efficient check-in. So whole service design aspect, interaction design aspect was baked in right to the product. to make it successful. And that's got validated with all the different awards that it has won.
Wow, this would have been an exciting experience. And while you've been talking about these users, let's step now into the world of the design and ask you a few questions around that theme. And while you've been a user research experience or user experience designer, building personas with the user's name, pain point, needs, and goals is an essential part of the user study. But sometimes team members see it through different perspectives.
Mhm.
Hence, it becomes crucial to add universality to the personas.
Mhm.
The question that I have for you there, Kadambari, is how can designers humanize the personas to create empathy within the team and bring it to life so that the whole team can easily understand?
So, first of all, talking about personas, personas are highly misunderstood concepts for many. Um, Many a times it ends up, the figment of designers' imagination, putting all the stereotypes, what they imagine for the users without a proper research. So, foremost, this is not what persona should be. Persona should be aggregation of behavior that should come after you do careful research and studies on your users. So at UXG at ValueLabs, what we try to do is we generally do it first while we encounter our business stakeholders. We understand what their imagination of their users and people in the system are. We first we call that as hypothetical, personas. We understand the system. We understand that who are different sort of personas. Now, personas also differ in terms of what kind of role they would be doing. There are end users, there are customers, right? So, for example, if we take, classic example I would take of a doctor, right? When you're designing an instrument for a doctor, doctor is the end user, but the doctor is going to use it on patient, right? So you need to make sure that there are two different sort of personas that you're catering this product to. One would be doctor, the other would be patient. And if you're expanding this whole thing to a system, there would be caretakers as well. So, and if they're going to use that, then those also need to be considered as a part of support persona for this particular ecosystem. We call this ecology of personas at ValueLabs, and we create these different personas and create their goals. So first we do it hypothetical way where we understand like what business stakeholders have in their mind. Then what we try to do is we try to actually do research in terms of going recruiting these kind of users and speaking to them. At this point of time, we validate these kind of assumptions which are there. We try to understand like what their goals are, what their tasks are, but more importantly we try to understand their lifestyle, what the day in their lives are. So all of these solutions that we are doing is not in the isolation and not in terms of just the context that is given, but understanding a broader picture of their preferences, lifestyle, and then designing for them. So I think for a design team to come together, first assumptions should be questioned, and all of these things should come from a strong research background where you're not only just creating something out of imagination, but has is backed by a lot of research, and those research is aggregated and then created into a snapshot of persona, and it should be rich enough for people to get that kind of imagination so they can then sort of start questioning or understanding that. And even after persona, I think that's not the end of making sure that you are understanding your users. You need a lot of other techniques to make sure that you are validating your assumptions through user testing and creating more sort of tests and during the whole process of designing a solution. So that is how we do it as a team. We try to make personas and then we test our assumptions through various different sort of methods.
Wow, interesting. And while you touched upon that, one of the other thoughts that come to my mind is customers demand a consistent, personalized, emotionally positive experience whenever they interact with a brand.
Hmm.
Customer experience enables brands to craft an experience that will bond customers through a positive emotional connection. What I wish to know from you is what can designers do to make the process seamless, enjoyable, and leave the customers feeling like they made a wise choice by doing business with them?
So I think, one of the first steps of creating anything is actually understanding. Or creating, I mean, by that I meant designing, is understanding. Understanding is at most important, be it your end user and their goals, or system. And also understanding at various levels, not only just your end user. You need to understand like the system, the whole, how things are involved, how people are interconnected, what their beyond their needs, what are their wants and desires, where are their pain points, what are the opportunities that can be leveraged to create positive and viscerally positive experiences for them. So I highly recommend in this regard to create like a to create positive experience, a service design approach, where you're not just looking at, let's say, the end user, but you're looking at systems, various systems that the user will touch, and various stakeholders that are involved. Because there's nothing in isolation in these days. People are connected, and we don't even work in isolation. So anything that you're designing, I'm sure it will touch users, and they will be using it in a certain context where they are also connected with other people. So identifying these sort of interconnections is extremely important to create seamless experiences, because when you understand these nodes, you then you try to understand, like, how it can be best utilized in terms of making sure that efficiencies can be brought in. Touch points can be created in a way that they are delighting. We can also use their lifestyle as an example for making sure that how they're using it. Is it used in transit? Is it used as a thing where they're using it just as a stance, which is a powerful stance where they're not literally looking at anything else? It is serious. Is it fun? So all of these things goes in to create a great experience. So I would say start with a macro vision, and then move on to micro, like really nano vision, where you're looking at the interaction and delightful UI, um, and lot of different sort of design disciplines will come into play when you orchestrate these kind of experiences. Uh, it is all about interconnection and creating amazing journeys for your users, and that is how business can create frictionless, seamless, and enjoyable experiences for their customers. Understanding that not only how the positive experiences would be, which is called happy path, but also when things fail, how can they create experiences which are, and devices or products and services which are flexible, forgiving, for the users. So that is how I think you can also create trust and enjoyable experiences for the customers.
Hey, did you know ValueLabs User Experience Group has been awarded the prestigious Titan Business Awards 2021? This demonstrates the strength of their success, which is built on their enthusiasm as a team. For Kadambari, that's a beautiful insight, and I now want to move it to another aspect of design. In fact, the landscape of connecting users and their experiences is changing. It has become extremely crucial to keep users connected and engaged in creating fluidity between channels and devices. To achieve this, designers have started designing for channels instead of users, actually. Since users are the only consistent factor in the scope of experience, the question that I have for you there is how can designers create an omni channel experience, maintaining a seamless sense of connection for the users?
I think designing for channels, that's a little that should not be the approach according to me. I disagree. Just for designers who are just designing for channels, at least I don't do that. We should always start with users, their lifestyle, how they move, what are their patterns, what they want to achieve, how they go about in their day. For example, when we look at creating design strategy, we try always to understand how users are going about their day, how their applications, would be in terms of using a particular design solution, how would they be interacting and how it will be fitting their lifestyle and goals. And based on that, we map out the channel, devices, messages, information, and stance of the application to suit them, and then create experiences for this particular thing that we are going to design for them. So this is most important part, an essential part that comes through research, where we try to understand users, their touch points, channels, devices, and everything. And as we cannot overstress the role of understanding people, I think, I can't overstress this, that, you need to understand the people that you're designing for. And when you do that, you will look at how systems are interacting, how touch points would be, and based on that, then you should create an omni-channel experience. So the goal should be to create great experience, not create omni-channel experience. The omni-channel experience will come because you would be exploring different ways they're interacting, different modes they're interacting, different channels, and then understanding that how it can be pieced together to create this holistic experience for them.
Wow, well said. In fact, while you spoke about this, one of the other areas, that I wanted to bring the conversation to was the world of technology. Although technology is always developed with the best motives, it can amplify flaws such as failing speech recognition system or an AI that can't comprehend any human functions. In fact, as a result, the technology has a blind spot that would not have existed if anyone with lived experience had been interested in its creation. The question
Mhm.
that I have for you is, how can designers better understand how their products or services can amplify these flaws and proactively recognize blind spots to avoid possible pitfalls?
Wow, essentially, this is one of my favorite questions where I always put to myself in, like, in weeks and times again and again, where I say, how can we understand what we do not understand, or how do we know what we do not know? Very epistemologically, sort of thing, where so I'm always seeking to understand and learn what I don't even like know right now. So these are some of the questions which goes into a little bit of philosophy also. But while you design, with the best possible intentions, how it will be used can differ widely, and the problem is that sometimes we are creating things which do not have precedence. So even people who are going to use, the behaviors that are going to come out of it are something which is going to be extremely new. um, and this has a potential of creating evils in the society as well. Talk about digital addiction, which happened while we wanted to make our user experience, as designers we wanted to make our user experience engaging, it went on to become addiction. So it's a tricky landscape to tread in, and so I believe the best way a designer can traverse through this is by actively researching, making, and testing not only the product and services but assumptions, and critically examining each and everything that we do in terms of product life cycle. Unfortunately, things are not so simple because sometimes it takes a while to understand how this new and innovative things, how it will come out, what kind of behaviors it will have. So at this point of time, you need to make sure that designs are flexible. It can be altered. You talked about speech, right? So in some of the uh, products that we have worked, and we made sure that there are more than one modality which can be used when, let's say, your speech fails. Then how do you go about using a certain another way of doing this, you know accomplishing your task. This also gets into another field, which is in a way not really another field, but it also gets you into another thought processes of making things inclusive, where people might um, there are diverse set of users who would be using your products and services. So how can you make it more inclusive and flexible? So if one modality or one way of doing thing is failing, how the other can be used to make sure that still it is making it's not making the users trapped. they still can attain what they want to attain. So I think adding flexibility, making the designs forgiving for the users, even if they have taken a wrong action, to course correct. That's another thing. And always trying to iterate on designs. As I said, in the design school, always, when we reached a target, we were said, okay, now can you improve? And given a different target. I think essentially that has to be in the product and services where you are continuously improving, because what we are creating sometimes are unprecedented, and when it is unprecedented, you need to make sure that you're getting those feedback and continuously improving on that.
Exciting. I mean, quite well put across in terms of how do you go out and connect the dots out there in terms of balancing between the technology usage, the design, and ensuring that it leads to a great user experience. And Kadambari, that brings us to our last question. At Avantika University, we've come up with this term, designeering, the base philosophy ideology on which we operate. Do you think these two disciplines, which is design and engineering, can be on same page, and is it a need of the hour to blend them?
I think, the world today is multi, trans, hetero, and anti-discipline. By that, I mean that yes, more than one discipline is required to create great experiences and to create something. Design, engineering, I think we should even be looking at even more disciplines to come together, like philosophy, psychology, more of humanities into things. So yeah, I think it's need of the hour to know more than just one way of thinking, just one way of doing things. We need to collaborate, actively learn new ways of thinking holistically, and to create wholesome systems, policies, products, services, and artifacts. So yeah, I think designeering makes sense.
Wow, thank you so much for that validation, Kadambari. This was an exciting conversation with you, and I'm sure that there's a lot of learning for our listeners from this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us on the show and sharing your experience and your views with our listeners.
Thank you, Rohit, for having me here.
Hello, and continuing our conversation with the team of Embed Design, today we wish to know from you, Arnav, how do you see user experience as a domain evolving, and what are the exciting areas that we can expect in the user experience domain in the coming days?
Thanks a lot for hosting us today and asking that question. And I think to answer that, I think all of the domains, because if you see post-COVID, most of the organizations and most of these industries have started adopting UX into their businesses and realized the importance of online business. I think ever since the term was brought to a wider knowledge by Don Norman, various industries started adopting it, and it is how a user ultimately interacts with your product, right? Not just product, but even a service or a system. Now, ultimately, this is a customer's perception of utility, how ease of use your product is, and how efficient your product is, right? Improving UX is important to most of the companies, designers, and creators when creating and refining these things. Uh, we are also doing this because in order to avoid any kind of negative user experience that can actually diminish the use of these products and thereby having a major impact in your business goal. Um, but personally, I feel the major improvement we all get to see is in the world of health tech, where post COVID, in order to reduce any possible touch points, people started valuing these markets and actually build a trust towards the same, right? So if you and me if we have any kind of a medical requirement or anything we have to do with medical, there's a digital product which is available out there, right? Using which we can actually look into various kind of medicines. We can order them online, we can consult a doctor online without having to meet them. We can see how we are doing if we are isolated. All of these things available as a retail product out there. and slowly and gradually even the awareness is coming to people's mind. And we see many startups, right from the finance industry, for example cred, to edtech like upgrad, to social media like Clubhouse. These are the industries which are following agile methodology and implementing UX strategy, even before they launch a product. So the way they define their customers, the competitors, the cost leadership, how can they be, you know, how can they be cheaper in terms of their prices as per their competitors, and ultimately the idea they want to sell uh, is all changing, right? And everything is getting better and more data driven. So um, it is also the zeal of these startups, I feel, in order to create a MVP or MEP, which is minimum viable product or minimum awesome product. uh, so by the way, they do these things to to raise the appropriate funding, or in order to actually do user testing. And all of these activities actually fuse up this concept. And I think due to the kind of awareness which is created out of uh, uh, the competitors, the kind of market where it is leading right now, I think even the word of deliveries has a huge impact, because if you see post COVID, most of us might have seen various kind of businesses going down, but delivery has been there. It has never fallen, right? So I think even in that industry we see many applications and digital products which are actually helping users how to track all of their data in a single place without having to actually shift from various platforms. And I think, yeah, I think COVID has changed multiple things for us, and how people are adapting to it is really different. And I think these kind of awareness and people trying to keep up with the trends makes things getting excited day by day. So yeah.
Hey there, we hope you enjoyed our show. Do write to us on ads@avantika.edu.in. We look forward to your opinions, feedbacks, and suggestions of speakers you would like us to host on this show. Do tune in our channel next week on Wednesday for a new story on Hubhopper or wherever you get your podcast from. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter.